if you talk to people who've had a long association with child support, they'll tell you the place is dysfunctional and needs a clean-out. And that's exactly what Senator Pauline Hanson has concluded, and she is passionate about this. And I want to join her or do whatever I can to get our audience on the same page. Senator Hanson, welcome to the program.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Let's talk about your personal experience. You know how hard it can be, right?
Oh, look, for sure. And go back to when I actually separated from my husband in 1987. And at that time, I had 4 children, 2 to my first husband, 2 to my second husband. Now, that was my second divorce in 1987. Now, after my first divorce, there was no assistance whatsoever. My first husband, he just went and lived his life, life of Riley, did whatever he wanted to. So anyway, I worked and I reared the kids solely. So anyway, then after my second marriage, that broke down. At that time, I had 4 children. And I actually came to agreement because I walked out. I left him with the house, the business. I went into one of our rental properties and I borrowed the money, all the money to buy my business so I wouldn't be on a pension. I want to be self-supporting.
Yep.
I actually went to him and an agreement that I came up and I said, okay, for the 2 children, $20 a week each. That was $40. The legals were saying to me, look, take 50. And I said, no, I'm happy with 40. That's fine. Do you know, I couldn't even, he was a plumber employed. We employed 3 plumbers at that time, apart from himself, and apprentices and full-time. Now,
so there was plenty of work and he had enough money to pay that.
Oh, he had, of course he did.
And of course the child support agency couldn't enforce that.
Owned the house, owned the business, the whole lot. So anyway, I actually then, he wouldn't even pay the 40, so it would accumulate. Then I'd have to go through the court system to get him to pay that. Then eventually, when I, years later, when I was actually got elected to Parliament, he actually said, look, I can't feed my family. I want to drag this through the courts. And at that time, it was $80 a week for the 2 children. I then said, instead of being dragged through the courts and a whole lot, I thought, if you don't want to support your family, and I said, you know, your children, I said, don't worry about it. So I walked away from it, and I've supported the kids all my life, virtually. No help system, so I can see from that side. And
but also, it's fair to say that what we saw in A Current Affair last night, and what I have, you know, gleaned from listeners when I've raised this subject before, it also works both ways. And the culprit at the end of the day all ends up being the child support agency.
Look, it does. What I'm hearing all the time, there is conflicting advice coming through the child support agency. They are reluctant to put anything in writing. They never respond in writing. They are not transparent. They're not consistent. And really, what I'm hearing from legal practitioners are they are biased towards men. Now, women are going to scream about this and saying, what about me? I'm not getting my child support. Look, I feel for the women. I've been in that situation.
Yeah.
But it's a failed system. Now, it was, and I look, Chris, if it's still the same, I believe it is, they actually take from your gross money before you pay tax, all the rest of it, right from the very top. They'll take for 1 child 18% of your wage, 2 children 27% of your wage, and third child 36% of your wage. That comes right off the top. Then you've got to pay tax on top of it. It is bringing a lot of people to their knees, and actually the whole system is not fair, because then you have the custodial parent who may have ended up in another relationship, or they're working, they don't declare their income, they're getting cash, and it's just not a fair system.
No, and it's a mess, and it can't be policed properly, which is the other frustrating bit for women and men, because it does work in the opposite direction. We saw in A Current Affair last night where a father was paying child support despite having full care of the child.
That's exactly. Look, I've heard that constantly all the time again. And you know that most legal practitioners struggle to even understand the whole system themselves. And there's another case here where the father has to fly from Brisbane up to Townsville to see the child every second week. Now, those flights can cost, up to $700.
Yep.
Now, on top of that, paying child support. Now, under the Child Support Agency Act, they're virtually saying, yes, that can be taken into consideration, the cost of your flights and everything to fly up to see your child. But they're saying, oh, no, we're not going to address that because the court's ordered you've got to fly up there. So it's...
But they're still in charge of what you end up forking out. So that jurisdiction still is, the power is in their hands still, surely.
Yes, it is. They are a law unto themselves.
Yeah.
And no politician, I found, this goes back to 21 years ago when I got involved in this with Child Support Agency. No politician tends to want to address this.
No.
And it has to be addressed.
Well, how are we going to do it? Do you want an inquiry, or will you make a representation to the minister, or where to from here?
All right. And yesterday I asked Senator Brandis in the Senate estimates about should the Child Support Agency come into the inquiry with the Family Law Court.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think they're going to do that. This needs an inquiry into it to do with the Child Support Agency. I believe it personally. It should be taken on the parental income of both the custodial and the non-custodial parent.
Yes.
It should be based on a percentage, and it should go on an age bracket.
Yeah.
So 1 to 6, 6 to 13, 13 to 18. And it should be taken on all income coming into that household. If anyone does not pay if they don't declare their total income, it should be heavily, heavily fined or charges laid against them. We've got to get some common sense in here.
Well, you've thought about it quite well, so hopefully they'll listen to you and we'll have that inquiry, and then submissions can be made by all those who've had a terrible brush with the Child Support Agency.
Well, Chris, I'm like a dog with bone.
Yeah.
I don't give up on these issues.
Good.
This is one of the most important issues that's on and affects many Australian families. It's like the Family Law Court review that's happening now. I don't believe it would have happened if it wasn't for my push.
Yeah.
This is something I will not give up on.
Great. And it goes hand in hand, as you say. Now, I've been racking my brain all night last night trying to think of the former Brisbane Broncos star who's going to be your next candidate. Will you put me out of my misery, please?
No. You're going to have to wait like everyone else.
Can you give us a hint?
No.
Oh. Rockhampton's a hint, isn't it?
Yes.
The Unions?
Chris,
Yeah?
you're going to have to wait.
Colour of hair?
Getting an exclusive on this.
All right. Secondly, is there a possibility you could form an alliance with the Katter Party?
Look, I've stood totally alone, and I think that we're going to work with the Katter Party. I think our policies are very much aligned, and they've got to face the elections, so we'll see what happens after the elections. But look, One Nation has stood totally alone. We will work with other parties on policies. We will, work together and support other parties with their policies. But will I form an alliance with these ones? At this stage, Chris, I think we'll just stand alone and see how we go.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Senator Pauline Hanson, very passionate about the Child Support Agency needing a complete and utter clean-up, but more than that, she's thought about how it could work. It's one thing to criticise something, it's another thing to be smart enough to know how it could work. There you go. And I'm glad she's thought this through. Hopefully other politicians will understand what she's saying and understand the depth of the problem.